Welcome to What's Your Next Move, the podcast for peak performers who are making things happen but are running into roadblocks that prevent them from getting what they want. Whether you work for someone else, you're an entrepreneur, thinking about starting your own business, or at a point in your life where you just can't make the move from where you are to where you want to go, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about answering one question: what's your next move? And helping you harness your power so your next move is the one that changes your life. I'm your host and resident provocateur, Arlene Battishill, and I want to know, what's your next move? Hi there, I'm Arlene Battishill, your host and resident provocateur. And in this episode, I have a very, very special guest because he is near and dear to my heart, and he is calling in from Tokyo, Japan. I guess it's his afternoon and my evening here in Los Angeles. And his name is Ty Guiliani, and I affectionately refer to him as the Godfather. I encountered Ty probably about a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, and it was quite it was quite the meeting where I was running a private Facebook group for people who were at various stages of launching their business, and he came into the group. And I had to basically beat him up a lot because he wouldn't listen to what I was telling him about what he needed to do about this offer he wanted to make to the consumer. And as I was beating him up, he was just resisting like crazy. And no matter what I said, he being the Godfather that he is, he's like, fuck you, I'm just going to do what I want. I'm like, well, fuck you back because you're just going to lose. And so what happened after that is we all went on to do many other things. And then Ty went on to do something quite extraordinary. But before we get into that, let me just tell you a little bit about this guy, because this is just ridiculous. He's built a couple of 7-figure businesses. He had an executive recruiting company there in Tokyo where he was placing people at companies like Google and Apple and Facebook and Amazon. And he was doing executive coaching for executives. And, you know, he couldn't be more of a high profile guy when it comes to the executive recruiting business. And what I found so peculiar about him was, what was he doing in this private Facebook group with me with people who were, you know, they were stay-at-home moms, and they were people who had other businesses and were trying to launch some little project on the side. And here comes the big guns from Tokyo, and he's trying to launch this little offer. And I'm thinking, dude, what are you doing here? But we just had a marvelous time together, and I just adore you, Ty. And I thank you so very much for joining me on this episode. I think it's going to be a wonderful conversation because you've had such an extraordinary career. And of course, along with that amazing career come, you know, the speed bumps and the roadblocks and the pain and suffering that go into a life that is filled with transition and then goes on a trajectory that takes you to where you are today. So if I have left anything out about you, my dear friend, please feel free to jump in right now and fill us in.
Right. Lovely intro. Yes. And I think there is one part that you missed out, is that I have a wedding dress business.
Yes, that's right. The number one wedding dress rental business. And is it international, or is this just in Japan?
It's just for Japan, and the business model would only work in Japan. It'd be impossible to do what I do in any other market because of supply chain, because of the customer base, because of how the Japanese treat and respect stuff, and they listen and pay attention and do what you need, and they send back your stuff, and we can do 400 to 420 weddings a month, and we could only do that in Japan. There's no other market we could do that because it's so tight, the supply chain. So there's that, and that was I guess my first real successful business ever. But boy, oh boy, you just nailed it when you said about, you know, the ups and downs and the reinventing and the repositioning, because, you know, I've gone through it, and like yourself, just so many different permutations of myself that, you know, I I haven't grown up yet to what I wanted to be. I'm still going there, So, when I was a little kid, when I was 10, 11 years of age, I wanted to become an army man. Everyone, kids play army and war and that kind of stuff. But I wanted to be an army officer in particular. And then I wanted to become the Prime Minister of Australia. That was, in America, president, right?
Why am I not surprised? That would be you, Ty. You're not going to accept the Minister of Defense or Minister of Health or anything. You're just going to be the freaking Prime Minister, because why not?
Right, no, and that was my goal. I did everything I could to get into the West Point of Australia. Basically, you go, just like in America, so many of your former presidents are former military. It's the same in Australia. A lot of our history is based around our war history. I know Americans probably don't know about it, but we've been in every war since the Boer War. And, we're everywhere. Wherever you go fight, we like to go and fight. That's just what Australians do. But for me, it was a big thing because, we celebrate it in terms of we celebrate our victories, of course, but we commemorate our losses, and it's a huge part of the history of Australia, modern history of Australia. So I wanted to be an army officer. I did everything I could to become an army officer. I went into army cadets. I went into the school council, student council. I did extracurricular activity, all this stuff to build up that portfolio as a teenager to get into officer training. And I got it. I got a scholarship, got top 1%, got into the Australian Defence Force Academy. My dream was just like this. I've done it. I've got in there. Awesome. First goal done. Next Prime Minister of Australia. I thought,
from boot camp to the Prime Minister. That makes perfect sense. That would be the jump that you would make, Ty.
Yeah, that's what the jump that I made. And I thought, look, 15 years in the army, maybe get to lieutenant colonel level if I'm lucky, or 20 years, and then go into politics from there. So I started to make inroads while I was at the academy. I got in contact through, one of my mates who was also quite political, had the same ideas. We got in. The military base, the Australian Defence Force Academy, is in Canberra, the capital city of Australia, where the Parliament House is. So we actually got in touch with our local federal rep, and he was the Shadow Minister for Defence. So we got invited to the parliamentary dining room. We got out there, and it was awesome. So there I am, 20 years of age, becoming an army officer, hobnobbing with politicians already. I'm thinking, this is set. From 10 years old to 20, that was my focus. My dad was is a Vietnam veteran. My brother was in the army, my grandfather, everything. So it was all coming together. And then I got injured, and everything fell apart. I mean, complete. You can imagine 10 years of your life to get there. That was my sole focus as a teenager. This is what I wanted to do. And there I am, can't run anymore, can't squat, can't kneel down, can't walk properly, legs stuffed up, 3 lots of operations on both legs, and discharged from the military. 23 years of age or 22 years of age, and just like, what the hell am I going to do now? And I had a quarter-life crisis. people talk about half-life crisis, but I had a quarter-life crisis because everything I knew was about getting into the military, doing the Army Cadets, doing all that stuff, getting in there, graduating. And then like, holy moly, what am I going to do now? And for a year, I had rehab for a year, had more surgery, all this kind of stuff. Started to trade futures market myself. And this is back pre-internet, right? So I've got like a pager, and I'm like making phone calls to put in orders and charting with pen and paper. And it just wasn't going well. And I interviewed for some jobs. I actually was going to become a spy. I got to the last rounds of that. Yeah, I can say it now because went through the ASIO testing and like the CIA, and I failed it right at the last moment. Medical as well. So one day I was in hospital, read news in the newspaper, and it said work in Japan. And I had no knowledge of Japan, like zero, except, we fought them in Papua New Guinea. We fought the Japanese. They bombed us in Darwin. They, sent torpedoes in Sydney Harbour Bridge with mini subs and all this kind of stuff. That's all I knew. But I thought, stuff it. Why not? And within 6 weeks of reading that, 6 weeks of reading that little, blurb in the newspaper, I found myself in Japan, and I knew nobody. I spoke no language skill. I had no Japanese, like nothing. I don't like fish. I don't like seafood. I hate sushi. And I don't like Japanese food. Those I still don't like. But I found myself in Japan, quarter life crisis, thinking, what am I going to do? Well, the job was teaching English to just normal people. And I thought, okay, I'll do this for a year and just see where it takes me. And very quickly I realized, holy moly, these people, they've got money. They've got money to spend. And there's 30 million people within 40 minutes of me. I mean, this is crazy. This is a market. I could do something here for sure, Tyron. And I was just thinking like, okay, I've got to make connections. So I made a couple of connections with some students one was, working for Prada. He was a chief financial officer for them, made some other connections. And then I thought, okay, I've got to get out of this teaching gig. This is just crazy. I'm just, just wasting myself here. But I thought, oh, I'm not going to stay here for a year. I'm going to get out, but okay, let's just try something. And I thought, I want to make some more money on the weekend. What's there? And I'm a foreigner. I speak no Japanese. I've got no friends in Japan. I've got nobody. I've got a suitcase. That's it. And I thought, I've got to use these. I've got to change these weaknesses into an advantage. So, use those differences, Tyron. Come on, get thinking. What's a service I can provide that's going to be easy, that's going to be just the weekends that I need? And I thought, weddings. Weddings is what I could do. I could become a priest. So I could become a wedding celebrant and I could do weddings. And I said to my girlfriend at the time, let's do this. Let's send out some letters to some restaurants, because back then hotels did all the weddings, right? It was all at the hotel locations, and restaurants just weren't being used. And I thought, hey, we could do this. Restaurants, they want to get more customers. We could use it in times, maybe they have in a location where it's kind of more business area and the weekends are actually quiet for them. So let's write 50 letters. Let's find 50 restaurants that have that. And let's say, do you want to do a wedding? Like, use your space as a wedding space, and let's do a ceremony inside your restaurant. 3 said yes. 3 out of 50, right? Wow. They just said, yeah. And we're like, holy moly. I'm like, I've got to buy some priest clothes. And I'm like, geez, Jesus, how bad's that? And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I literally went on the internet, and this is year 2000, 1999. Not much internet in Japan back then. You'd be surprised. I find some priest clothes, garb, like the whole black shirt thing, everything.
Halloween costume, priest garb?
No, I found a legitimate one. Anyway, so I buy that. Then I'm like, okay, I've got to do a ceremony. I don't know about a ceremony. I wasn't even married. So I find that online, dearly beloved. Then I'm like, well, I should add a little bit of credentials to me. Let's register. I found a church in California you can register as a celebrant. And it's like, okay, I'm registered as a celebrant. So there I am. Go out to these restaurants and we start doing weddings on the weekend, right? So there I am, from army man, broken down army man, to English teacher, to wedding celebrant, dressed up as a priest, doing weddings.
Oh my God, you're killing me.
And I had my girlfriend with me. She was like the attendant. And someday she would spring on me and say, oh, this one's Japanese today. I'm like, what? Are you kidding? I don't speak Japanese. I'll just read this. And I just botched it up. It was horrible. Anyway, I'm thinking, okay, this is making money. It's okay. Hired a couple of other priests to do it with me as well. So it's kind of cool. But then I thought, nah, this is not going nowhere anywhere. This is going nowhere fast. And I asked one of the women that was getting married. I said, oh, it's a beautiful dress. How much did that cost? As you do. And she's like, $3,000. And I was like, wait a second, Japanese always mess up the numbers when they convert it from yen to, because 300,000 yen is $3,000. And I thought, oh, maybe she means 30,000 yen, which is $300. And she's like, no, $3,000. I'm like, for that dress? She's like, kind of, oh, I mean, for that dress, it's lovely. And she said, yeah, and it's rental. And I was like, huh? You're renting it? She says, yeah, just for today. I'm like, cha-ching. Instantly, I just knew. There we go. People are getting ripped off in Japan. So I went online, found some wedding dresses, bought 6 from China, brought them to Japan, said to my girlfriend, I said, let's do the wedding business. Let's do wedding dresses. And she's like, I don't know anything about it. I said, what? Either do I. Let's just do it. And I said, make a website. She's like, what do you mean make a website? This is like year 2000, right? Make a website. She's like, okay. So she bought Front Page, like some IBM program.
Page, geez.
And, and she made a one-page website. And we're like, voila, we have a website. And like, how do we get customers? And I said, I don't know. Don't people just find it? A customer found it somehow. We're like, holy moly, we don't even have a place to do this. Like, we don't have a shop. We have nothing. And she's like, what we can do, we can use my grandma's house. She has a spare room out the back. It's a Japanese tatami mat room you see in the movies, like very Japanese with white paper walls. And she says, we can use that. And they're miles out, but a customer will go there. I'm like, really? So we took the 6 wedding dresses out to the grandma's house, go into the back room, set them up against the wall. The customer comes to the house, bing bong. I'm in the stairwell kind of listening, right? My girlfriend is doing the sales at the start. They come in and they rent, and we only charge them $300. And we're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, $300. This is so great. Awesome. Yeah, I rent it. Great. And we're like, okay, this is too easy. Yeah. So, we said, let's grow this. Let's grow this. So we put 10 grand in each together. I'd saved up when I was in the army. So I got some payout from the army as well. So I had some money from there. She had gone overseas studying English. She got hit by a car. She sued the person. The money that they gave her was exactly $10,000. So we said, let's put $10,000 in each together and we'll buy some more dresses and we'll rent a space. And that's what we did. Fast forward, 16 years, 420 weddings a month. Number 1 ranked on Google in Japan for wedding dress rental, 25 staff. We have a kimono business. We have a photo studio, and that went tremendously. But I tell you what, that was hard because during that time we got married to her in the end. We were working together, and then I realized we can't work together. I'm the godfather, but she is the godmother. She was, and it was horrible.
Wait, you're the king until the queen gets home, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I quickly realized we cannot work together or we cannot be together. That was the option. And I was like, holy shit, what am I going to do now? Like, I started this business. This is cool. I was doing all the back end stuff, doing the ordering, dealing with vendors overseas in English, all this kind of stuff. And then I was like, okay, I've got to go into another business. I said, we're going to kill each other because, we had this small little apartment. Like, my balcony is now as bigger than what apartment we lived in. That's the difference it is now. And I used to sit in this room and I was sewing. I knew how to sew. I was in the army. I knew how to sew stuff. I was sewing wedding dresses at 12 o'clock at night with headphones on, plugged into the TV, because if my wife heard a noise while she was doing her work, she would go Burko at me, just crazy, like, shut it up. I'm concentrating. So I'm sitting in this small little apartment, headphones on, plugged into a TV, sewing wedding dresses at 12 o'clock at night. That was my life for months and months and months and months. And then okay, we've got to stop this. This is crazy. So I'm thinking, again, I don't speak Japanese still. I'm a foreigner. What the hell am I going to do? I've got some business experience. Go into recruiting. Why not? Let me help foreign companies coming into Japan. So bang, I went into that. Then went to another firm, became a partner. We grew the business to, 4 or 5 mil a year, just servicing foreign companies in Japan. Again, I didn't speak any Japanese. Every deal was done in English. It was great because I dealt with English-based clients. They hired Japanese people who spoke English, and Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, all the big ones, Red Bull, GE. I mean, they were all my clients, and I built their businesses in Japan, helped build their businesses, and it was great and just it was fabulous. And I met tremendous people that I met back in my teaching days. I had kept contact with them. I moved one of those guys, the guy that was at Prada. I moved him to Virgin Cinemas when they launched in Japan as their CFO. It all came together nicely, and it was going well, and I loved it, and I was making tons of money, which is always a great byproduct, but it was hard. I was doing 6-7 days a week. My wife was doing 6-7 days a week. We got married in between. She was doing 6-7 days a week. And it was like that for years, like for a good 3-4 years, just every day working to make this happen and to get results. And it wasn't, I see in these ClickFunnels group and the millennial entrepreneurs, but I work so hard. Dude, 19 hours for fucking 4 years, that's hard. Like every day, get over yourself. And this is this is like, cold calls. That's hard work. Anyway, so that worked out well. Then I started some marketing consulting firm, met a partner. He was a former client, a big shot in the advertising. I don't want to call him up as I sued him, by the way. 3 of us sued him. He turned out being a real prick, and he screwed me over, and he screwed 2 of my mates. So the 3 of us, we sued him all together. But that was another big hit in the gut. It cost me over $1 million. It cost me because he basically committed fraud, embezzlement, all these other things. But he was someone who was an executive at a Fortune 500 company. I'd worked with him before, made hundreds of thousands of dollars off him as a client. Then he went into the entrepreneurial world with me. First time he'd be an entrepreneur. But I saw signs. This is a real big lesson for everyone, Arlene, is I saw signs in him and I ignored them. And that was the worst thing I could have done. I saw he was kind of screwing over some clients and I kind of let it slide. You know, like he'd overcharge and goes, oh, but, you know, they owe us from this anyway. So, and I wasn't comfortable with it. And I always called him out, but I didn't put the hammer down on it then and there. I mean, he was 15 years older than me as well. So I had a little bit of, you know, insecurity there, but I saw it and I let it slide. And in the end, the shit that he did to them, he did to me. And it's my own fault for not, you know, stopping him right there. And he did stuff behind my back that I didn't know of, which I definitely would have got out of business with him straight away. But in the end, he just screwed me over. So that business came to a crashing halt with a massive bill that I had to pay off. And then at the same time, the financial crisis hit. You know, all that led to a perfect storm. In 2008, 2009, I had three other businesses that were going to be 8-figure, 9-figure businesses with partners. Everything failed one after another because it was all at that stage we were going for the seeding, going for the funding. We'd all put money in and just the money. Guthrie Renkner was looking at our companies to buy. It was a nutraceutical company. It all failed. All at the same time, one after another, bang, bang, bang. And not only that, then I was left with a huge bill, almost $1 million to pay. And it's like, and he just fled. So I lived up to my obligations and said, I'll pay it. And I did it. And it took me a few years to get back. Still doing recruiting, making money, focused, double down on that. And then, you know, basically I'm thinking I need to transition some of these businesses to online. And I want to do that over the next 5 years. And I want to do it quickly. Well, I thought that was kind of quickly thinking back then, but yeah, I was really like, no, I've got to do this a little bit faster. And I want to change it so I can, you know, I can go and do something that I can leverage everything I have now, still make 7 figures with it and, you know, do it smart. And that's when I first found the whole ClickFunnels world and all that kind of stuff, and then found you. And I was still thinking recruiting based stuff. We did a funnel, didn't really work. And then I thought, okay, I've got to take, you know, I'm already doing this LinkedIn stuff with people. I've made, you know, literally every year since April 2004, at least $250,000 in my pocket directly from LinkedIn, year in, year out. My firm, we did over $22 million off LinkedIn for free, you know, just activity on LinkedIn. And I trained all these guys how to do it. And I was thinking like, okay, I've been offering this service for free to these executives. And I've been coaching them. I've coached over 100 consultants on how to use it for free. And then I thought, you know, they all got results. The businesses got results, people that went independent. And then, you know, earlier last year, I thought, okay, I need to specifically, you know, make that into a product as such, into a standalone service. I've been doing it for years and I can deliver it all online and I can make it happen. I got a coach to show me how to set it up, how to do the whole stuff, how to structure it properly, and launched it. And already it's six figures within the first 3 months. You know, and this will be a 7-figure every year on year. I'm going to hire a couple of people to help to do enrollment, but that it clicked. That was the pivot, and we talked about this heaps, Arlene. I remember in the Boom Boom Club, which was just fantastic. I mean, you were a godsend. You came in. I mean, I think it's just, you know, when you put it out there, when you're operating on a certain energy frequency. And I know it's all woo-woo, but I really believe that when you put that out there, you know, it gets picked up. Someone's antenna picks that up and you pick that up. And, you know, people pivoted in that group a lot, which was cool to see. And I did a minor pivot, but then when I got out of that, when you closed the group down, because you only did it for a couple of months and it was really, you know, that we all knew that was going to be the time frame. But then after that, the lessons online really stuck with me, and it was like, just put it out there. Just put it out there. Let the market.
Right, for sure. And what's really interesting about the entire trajectory that you've laid out here, from the kid who wants to be the army man, who becomes the army man, who's heading in the direction of politics and just gets completely derailed at 20 by an injury, and then shifts gears and moves into futures trading, and then decides he wants to become a spy, and then moves on to Japan to become, an English teacher, and then spots an opportunity and, walks around as a wedding priest, and then discovers the wedding rental business, and then things move on. And next thing you know, you're in a recruiting firm, and then you're doing marketing and consulting, and then you get this partner that you're having to sue, and the financial crises, and the conflict with your wife, and all these things that are going on. The thing that strikes me, and I've always known this about you, Ty, since I met you, is that you will see every opportunity, no matter how small it is, and you will instantly do something with it. And what sets you apart from so many people, and I think is the main reason you have had the success that you've had, is that you didn't actually think about anything that you were doing. You just went forward. Yeah. I mean, it's very evident in the story that you've just told, which is, this is one of the most magnificent stories I've ever heard, because it is, I felt like I was at the movie watching an action adventure film.
It's felt like it.
You. Yeah. And, I'm going on the roller coaster ride with you as you're describing this story. And I can feel the energy just in the way that you're describing all of this. And of course, that's the surface energy that is just about, this is the story of my life for this period of time. And of course, that doesn't actually address the gutting it out every day. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But what I find really remarkable about you is the one thing that you do that most people don't do. You just put it out there, and you just let the market tell you what it is that you need to know, so that then you can make a decision about what your next move is. And it is very evident in the story that you've shared here that you were making a decision about your next move at every step of the way, because you would get information. You'd see an opportunity, you'd get information and feedback from the market, and then you would take action in response to that. And you were very quick about doing it. And what most people do is they labor over every last freaking little detail. I don't actually know what they're doing, because they suffer the disease of delay, which is something that we talked a lot about in the group when we were in it, which is you're constantly doing things that prevent you from coming to market with whatever it is that you're trying to do. And you're making excuses all along the way, because you actually are afraid to take the risk and jump into the deep end of the pool and just test the water. And you have been testing the water the entire way. And then you finally hit on this enormous success that is just at its beginning, and you're already generating the kind of revenue that you are doing the whole LinkedIn thing. And so, I mean, who has a story like this? And, the best part of it is I can tell how much fun you have had using an approach that is just about putting something out there and waiting to see what happens, and then responding to that, instead of trying to dictate up front what is supposed to happen, as if you have any control over that. And it seems like in your story and the trajectory that you have been on through most of your life, you simply responded to whatever it was that you saw. Because, I mean, I don't know how anybody goes through all of these changes. This isn't even a circuitous route to somewhere, because there's no somewhere that you're going. You are just following whatever is being presented to you. And what's very interesting is that throughout my entire life and career, that is exactly the same thing that I have done, where I simply took in whatever information was presented to me, always incomplete, and just said, okay, what can I make of this? I need to get moving, and I need to do it right now, because I was always motivated by, I need to get to my first dollar in as fast as possible. Right. And I mean, has that always been a driving force for you, that what you always saw was, I need to make $1 here. Otherwise I'm wasting my time, or I am too slow to get to the point where I actually have that dollar coming in, and then we're in business.
It's funny you should say that because I've gone through phases, and when we were when I was in your group a while, back in March last year, I was also, I was ignoring what I've done in the past that made me successful. I was like, I've got to prepare this first, and I've got to get that. I'm like, no, I don't. So the next business, my next funnel, so to speak, my next sales funnel was, I'm going to make a program. I'm going to show exactly how I make money on LinkedIn. I'm going to teach these entrepreneurs, solopreneurs in the B2B space how to do it. And I'm going to make a program. It's going to be this long. Well, all I did, I pre-sold it to 2 people, and I stayed 1 week ahead of them. Mm-hmm. And I made the course 1 week ahead. And by the end of the first lot of students, the next lot came through. They just got the recordings. They have I do live Q&As and all that kind of stuff. But exactly that, I just put it there. I knew what the steps had to be, but I didn't spend 3 months making videos and filming it and editing it and all that rubbish. Because I just wouldn't have done it. I know what would have happened. I would have got a month and a half in it, and then a new idea would have come to me, and I would have ran with that and left that behind, which I've done so many times. Right. Yeah, unless I do take action, I know what path I go down. The path is I get really excited and I create it, a part of it, and then psychologically in my brain, I'm already successful. and then I leave it and like, well, that was successful, next. And really, your brain can't tell the difference. Mm-hmm. Your brain doesn't know. If you really feel, and that was a big problem for me. I've got so many other. I was going to be importing dogs to Japan, Chihuahuas. I've got so many different things, Arlene, that I've already made trillions on. that I knew would be successful. And I just felt, that's going to be successful. I started a plan, or I started executing, and then I'm like, I just can't be bothered. But that would have been a huge success. And next.
Well, the thing that differentiates you from most people is that, for many of the ideas that you've had, you actually turn them into significant successes, where for many people, they have ideas and they play out this fantasy where they've made their trillions, but they never actually see a dollar from those ideas because they're content to have them be ideas. And then when they see it come to market, they'll say, oh, I invented that a long time ago. But they're still sitting on their sofa drinking a beer watching football. Yeah. Yeah. So, I've
got a mate, he invented Twitter, like seriously, like years. I've known him for 15 years. And before Twitter came out, he invented it. And then I was like, well, we've got to push this dude. Whatever.
People are just content to have the idea.
I've seen that. And I think it's also, Elaine, I think it's a fear because, in my coaching now as well, when I meet these entrepreneurs, so many of them have been sitting on this idea for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and they're making like, $500 a month or $1,000 a month, or they haven't made anything yet. But I think what they are afraid of is, if it fails, holy moly, I've just wasted 6 months, a year, 2 years of my life, and I've told everyone I'm doing this. So therefore, I'll just stay in this shitty mode. I'll just stay playing small because I can still say, I'm an entrepreneur, I do that. But in fact, I live with my parents still. I'm, or I live in a small little place, make no money and just squeak by. But hey, I'm an entrepreneur. And I see that a lot. And it is a fear of failure that, they're comfortable because they can still say I'm an entrepreneur. I've still got this product. They've got their baby and they're proud of it, but they're just too scared to push it out there because if it fails, it negates everything that they've done. I don't care. If it fails, next.
Well, the thing about failure, as we both know, is that the failure is where you discover things, where you learn what the market is saying. And many times we fail because we're not paying attention to what the market is saying. Now, obviously, if you are in the market like both you and I were, and you suffered significantly greater losses than I did during the downturn in the economy, and it cost you dearly, it cost me dearly, but it cost you dearly times $1 million. And when you're in that situation, you have no control over that. You cannot control the fact that the economy is just taking a dump. and you're stuck. But you can comfort yourself in knowing that everybody else in the world is in the exact same situation. So it's like, all right, we're all just going down together, and we're on the Titanic, shitstorm that just keeps raining down on us. And then one day we may recover if we're still actually alive at that point. But outside of events like that you have no control over whatsoever, the reality is that the failure comes from typically not paying attention to a market signal. And in many cases, I mean, if you talk to the most successful entrepreneurs, they have failed at several businesses before they ultimately arrived where they are. And part of what happens in the beginning is you have no idea what you're doing. And so instead of just taking a breath and getting with experts who know exactly what they're doing, you try and do everything yourself. And then you fail. Exactly. That's when you learn. And then you go out and do it again, and you make fewer of those mistakes, but you're still failing. And the point at which you have your success is when you've decided to listen to other people who know what they're talking about, and you get out of your own way.
Yeah. You made a really good, you made a really good point back in the day. You always used to say decisions, and you said, there's no good or bad decision. It's just a decision. Right. That's it. The outcome thing. But I want to take the failure thing one step further, Arlene, because, everyone says, oh, you learn so much from your failures. Now, I kind of challenge that a bit. A failure is not binary as well. Because you fail, it doesn't reveal what successful is. You still have to go and find out what success is. A failure, all that failures have shown me is what went wrong. And I'm like, okay, don't repeat that, Tyron, but I do, usually 2 or 3 times. I just do it over and over again. I'm a fool like that. But a failure for me, to be honest, I've learned more from my successes because they show me that is the key to success. Right. Repeat that time. Now rinse and repeat. Great point. So I fail. Yeah, I fail. That doesn't reveal to me. This is why I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they lay in their failure and say, well, I'm learning a lot. No, you're identifying where the failure point is, but that does not reveal where the success point is. You're going to do another permutation and you're going to fail again, most likely, and you'll identify another failure point. Again, it does not reveal where the success point is. You have to find the success point. And that's what I found with failure and success, that when I've hit those successes, it's like, okay, why was that successful? And repeat that. Now, with the failure, you do the opposite. Why did that fail? Well, don't repeat that. Right. But, that's just one less, permutation, and maybe you got to go through 3 or 4 till you get that success. So I'm always a little bit skeptical, or not skeptical, I don't know what the word is, but I'm always, like, well, yeah, failure's good. And it just means I stuffed up that way. Please, Tyron, try not to do that again. Oh, you did it again, you idiot. But it's just by, as you said, doing it, executing it, making the decisions, and hopefully more of them, 51% of them are right compared to, wrong, and you're a success. And then saying, okay, why was I successful? Look at that success point and say, okay, how can I scale that? How can I repeat that? How can I improve on that? And that's when you really hit it. And I loved how you said, like, find people that know what they're doing and just copy, emulate, get them to show you. And that's, really, my coaching in particular, I've been doing it for years and years, but as a complete package of a total service. But I really wanted to take it out. So I thought, okay, who does high ticket items? And I found Russ Ruffino, and I just love him and his team. He is amazing. He's head of sales, Mark von Musa, is a freaking genius. He's a freaking genius. And, he was Tony Robbins' head of sales for 5 years. He took their company to 61% enrollment rate. 61%. Imagine that. Everyone you pitch, 61% you enroll. And that's high ticket item. One phone call, $9 grand. Every time, 61%. Those guys know what they're doing. They come from a place of love, compassion, caring, concern, curiosity. I just resonate with them so much more than like the Cardones or the other salesy dudes that are out there. And I just got them, like, show me, how do I do this? I've got this program. How do I make it good? Thank you. Boom. Execute. Success. Thank you. Bang. Money. And,
I think that, to your point about coaches, There are so many life coaches, business coaches, family coaches. Everybody is a coach out there today. And so there's a certain feeling that people have about coaches that they don't actually feel that they can be beneficial. And, the biggest obstacle is always the money. And people feel, well, I can't spend the money on this. I can't spend the money on that. And my attitude is, how can you afford to not do something that's going to help you get somewhere that you have not been successful doing yourself?
Yeah, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, exactly. It's total fiction and it's fantasy land. But when people think about coaches, they don't think about it in terms of the way we use coaches in sports.
Right.
And nobody's going to become a professional athlete without a coach, because that coach knows exactly what it is that you're doing. You can't see yourself, swinging a golf club or a bat or throwing a football or, kicking the soccer ball or running or whatever it is that you're doing. Peak performers all have coaches.
Everyone.
They have many of the coaches. They've got strength training coaches. They've got, flexibility coaches. They've got coaches coming out of their ass, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get their bodies to perform in a way where they are pulling out of their bodies the maximum performance. And so what I always find puzzling is that, when we talk about our businesses, or we talk about our relationships, or we talk about our families, people are absolutely reluctant to hire a coach because all they think about is how much it's going to cost them, and they can't afford it.
That's nuts.
But
nuts.
In my feeling, you can't afford to not do this, because you are where you are and you're not being successful at what you're doing right now, or not having success in your relationship. And you need somebody who knows what they're doing, who are removed from your situation enough to be able to reflect back to you what they see with a fresh pair of eyes, and then give you actionable things that you can do that are actually going to translate into success for
Absolutely.
you. But people just don't want to do it because they hear the word coach. And I'm just thinking, how is it that as an adult, you are somehow dismissing the idea of having a coach, when the entire time you were growing up on into university, if you were a performer or an athlete, you always had coaches. Why would you not want to have a coach at this point in your life? They're going to cut down the amount of time that you take to come to market with something, because they actually know how to do that. And there you are, just sitting there dicking around with, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that because I need to save money, and therefore I'm going to do all of this shit. But you're not expert at any of it. It's how you go bankrupt. That's what actually happens.
Oh yeah. I mean, I looking back on, years ago when I was, presenting options to people, and if they said no, and I used to follow up, and I'd follow up with them, and 6 months later check in on them. And, as with even Russ Ruffino was talking about his experience, mine was exactly the same. About 40-50% had just given up on their entrepreneurial life and just gone back working in the corporate world. The other 45% odd, they had tried, they'd bought some crappy courses, shelf help, not self-help, shelf help, sits on the shelf, doesn't get opened. They'd bought some of those courses, they'd dabbled around, and they were worse off than when I found them. Their mental state was now in scarcity. They weren't thinking in abundance. Everything about them made them a horror client. So I just wouldn't offer them anyway. Even if they begged, they were just, I'm like, no, now you're, 6 months ago, you were right. Now you're screwed up. And I can't do unscrew. I just can't do that. You're just going to be a detriment. Yeah, there's going to be a detriment. And the other, 5-10%, they were just stagnant. It was like time had stopped for them, and they were happy to sit in their pain, and they were happy to sit where they were. And it was crazy. And that was 100% of people. Not one person had accomplished where they said, oh, well, I'll try it myself. Not one person had done it. Not one. So now in my coaching I follow also the same method that Ruffino does. I don't do follow-ups. I don't do email follow-ups. I don't chase them up in a phone call. They get my, they see my ad on Facebook or they see me on LinkedIn. They watch my 45-minute presentation. There's no sale in it. I tell them what I'm going to do. These are the shifts you need to make. They get me on a phone call. They've got me for 45 minutes to an hour and a half. I will discover what their problem is. I will discover and give them 100% clarity why they are not making money on LinkedIn. I'll find out where they want to go with it. I'll tell them how I'll do it and fix it for them. And then I'll ask them, you want me to coach him? We'll do it. Yes or no, basically. And if they say yes, great. They get success. If they say no, I'm not chasing them. I'm not, because I know the stats, and I say to them, look, you get off this phone call, you are not going to succeed. You will not. Yeah. I've never seen it. And they say, oh, let me think about it. I'll come back to you. No. I want people that are committed, decisive now. It's not a matter of like if they're committed to their, it's not cheesy. I really, everyone who's had success with me are the most committed, are the most decisive to getting this sorted out. And they're the ones that I want to coach. I don't want dabblers. I don't want people to come in. I mean, I'm saying to them, for the price of my coaching, and, many of them, their price points are quite decent price points. It's like, it's one client. I'm going to give you a strategy you can use forever. And this is a no-brainer. This is the easiest decision you are going to make in the whole coaching program with me. There's decisions you're going to have to make inside my coaching, which are harder than this. Yeah. Harder than saying, I'm going to pay you X and I'm going to give you X back. That's a no-brainer. And some people just live in their pain. The bridge of fear is too great. And as much as you can attach it to their emotional and their logic, the heart and their head, some people are just, they just want to stay in their fear. And, I'll give them 5 shots. I do, I'll answer it, I'll go through an objection sequence, if you want to say, like at least 5 times. And I only offer those I'm 100% confident I can solve. That's it. And even in my Facebook group, you'll see people like, oh, I had a breakthrough call with Tyron. He didn't offer me a role. Oh, thank you so much. He told me why. And, people congratulate me for doing the right thing as a coach. Like if I can't help you, and you shouldn't be on LinkedIn because your active market's not there, listen to me. Don't go on it. You're wasting time. And this is where I hate, Arlene. I hate self-help courses, especially for LinkedIn, because in the B2B space, everyone believes, okay, LinkedIn's B2B. I'm in B2B, therefore I should be on LinkedIn. Right. And that is a fallacy. 52% of the people I've spoken in the last month who came to me, who've come through my funnel, are in the B2B space, thought they should be on LinkedIn. When I analyzed their market, who their targets were, and everything, it's like, no, you shouldn't be on LinkedIn. It's going to waste your time. You'll burn through money. Go make a Facebook funnel, go on Instagram. LinkedIn's like, and then I explain exactly why. And then they're like, holy moly, I just spent $1,500 on this course. Like, no shit you did, because did you speak to the expert that made it? No, I just bought it. Yeah. And those experts, they know. And if they know, well, put it this way, if they know, they're just being absolute pricks because they're getting people to buy courses that shouldn't be using it on LinkedIn, or they're negligent and they actually don't understand it. They're just like, oh, I made 50 grand in 1 year. Big deal. I made 50 grand this month off LinkedIn. Like, get off yourself, like, come on. So they're either negligent, negligent, or they're just being deceitful. Because if I'm coaching and I'm speaking to people every day and 50% of them shouldn't be on LinkedIn, I could have got them to buy a 1,500 cheap program from me if I wanted to.
Absolutely.
There's no way. That's a Band-Aid. Because what happens is they do the program, then they execute and they realize, oh shit, my people aren't here. And why isn't anyone emailing me? Why? It's because your people aren't there. They're dormant. And it's incredible. So I'm kind of sick of that. And this is the thing, Arlene, what I love about you is you've come from the business world. You've been in business and you understand, you've got business acumen. So many of these new entrepreneurs, there's nothing wrong with, we've all got to start somewhere. But listen, don't be a coach if you've got 1 year of success. Because, we go through so many, I've had years where it's been mega killer and I've had years where it's been horrible. That's the building the experience level. And that's when you can say, hey, emulate this because of these experiences. Right. But when there's huge gaps in your own business understanding and then you try to teach other people, that's just, you're just fooling yourself, and it's horrible.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what happens. And I think that, as you point out, when you have that, you have longevity around being in a business, you have a perspective that other people don't have. And like you say, there are people who are brand new to this whole thing. And of course, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon because they think it's a fast path to riches. And there are enough internet marketers out there actually promoting that idea. Yeah. But it really does a disservice to people who really want to do something that can be productive and helpful and, financially successful. But they're being completely misled by people who are, presenting the holy grail that you can have in the next 3 minutes if you just follow these 3 magical steps. So, I think it really is unfortunate and very much a disservice to the consumer because, it's buyer beware out there on the internet because, there's no organization that's monitoring whether or not any of this shit is legitimate. Right. And there are enough people out there hawking their wares of shit that is not actually going to get people to their next revenue event. And that's what's so frustrating to me is that, everybody's just selling stuff, but they aren't necessarily helping people.
They aren't.
And that really troubles me.
If you're selling a course and you've got 1,000 students, you're a prick.
No kidding. Like if you're not, and we both know who those people are.
Yeah, exactly. And I get every one of my guys that comes into my coaching, they get me, I do 7 or 9 week program. They have me every day. They can contact me every day. Any question, we have Q&A live calls. I did one this morning, 2.5 hours talking to this group. They're just awesome. And and it's me answering the questions. It's me. I want their success and I keep it tight because I want them. I want them to be successful and I do everything in my power and they've got to turn up and show up and do the work. But do you know how many refunds I've given? 0. 0.
Well, that speaks to the fact that what you're doing is being done out of a desire to help people and to see them be successful. And I think that is the one thing that sets people apart from everybody else. The wannabes out there that are just putting shit out there because, they can go find something on Alibaba on the internet and then they're going to turn around and sell that shit on Amazon and they don't actually give a shit about anything about the consumer and they're just in there to see how much of that product they can turn and make their money and off they go. But they're not contributing anything to the consumer and the consumer is desperate for experience. They're desperate for engagement. They're desperate for feeling a sense of connection. And there are so many people out there that are selling them things that don't provide them with any of that. And I just think it's really, really unfortunate because you make a choice about how you're going to do your business and how you're going to conduct yourself. And in terms of sustainability in a business, everything is about the relationship you have with the customer.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't take care of that customer sure is going to take care of you because they're going to kick you to the curb.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
just reality.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I guess I've been fortunate for 16 years. The businesses that I've been in, or 17 years, they're all been people businesses. It's one-on-one, it's belly to belly, it's providing a service. Weddings. Okay, you can't screw up someone's wedding. They got one day, one shot. You have to make them feel so damn special. They have no stress, no anxiety, nothing. You've got to be absolutely perfect. And when you do screw up, I'll give you an example. So we have beautiful gowns. I mean, we design them ourselves. We have them made. They are exceptional. Our price points are fantastic. I truly believe, we are number one. We're the number one rental boutique, independent boutique in the whole of Japan. Now, we had these tuxedos. They're gorgeous. Now, we just had an event. We had, close to 300 and something weddings last month. This is a quiet month in the winter. We'll start to get busy again now. But we had one customer. They have their tuxedo. They rent it, wedding dress, tuxedo, and the tuxedo has 7 buttons on the sleeves, kind of fake, those fake buttons.
Sure.
One of them was broken. That's it. One was they're not even functional, but one was broken. Okay. We got a call at 10 p.m. at night. Oh, we've just, from the restaurant place. Oh, we just saw your tuxedo. There is a broken button. Like, who is going to see that one of 7 buttons? But they call the customer. The customer gets all concerned, and so we had to get there first thing in that morning, and then what do? We give a full refund. We deliver. And you make sure that they are happy. And then we said, okay, we'll give you another tuxedo. Hey, come into our studio. We'll do a shot for you. Just over deliver. When you screw up, like over deliver and always be thinking like, it's not about me. It's about them.
Right. Absolutely. And it's how you prevent people from asking for refunds, because the reality is when consumers feel that you have really extended yourself and really care about them and want to do everything possible to make it right, they will sing your praises like nobody's business. But if you don't handle them properly, they are going to crucify you out on social media, and you cannot afford to have that happen. And if you're not paying attention, oh my, are they ever going to take you down?
Yeah. And it's so quick, right? So quick to happen, and you can see it. And I think maybe you agree. I think over the next few years, some of these people today who are just disingenuous, they're going to be found out. It's going to come.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to come.
And it already is, because it's inevitable that happens, because you can only present yourself in a certain way to the consumer for so long before they can smell that shit a mile away. Mm-hmm. And no matter how much you dress up the pig with lipstick and
that's still a pig.
It's still a pig.
Yeah.
And they're going to find it out, and it's going to stink like rotting meat. So, you taking care of your customer is what matters more than anything else, because you take care of them, they will most certainly take care of you.
Absolutely.
Now, we have just blown through this hour like nobody's business.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
I didn't even get a chance to ask you all of the other questions that I had for you. And so I'm wondering if you have the time, if we could have another chat for another episode that would function much like a part 2.
Sure. Absolutely.
That would be terrific. So, you know what? In our final few minutes, do you have any thoughts that you'd want to share with people? You are obviously tremendously successful in what you've done. And for the listeners of this episode, is there anything you would want to share with them about, what they're looking at as they are facing roadblocks and feeling desperate about their situation and feeling that, their situation is not going to change, and they just don't know where to turn or what to do to find the success that they're looking for? Mm-hmm. What would you say to them?
Yeah. Overwhelm is a big thing, right? It is huge. And as they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so important. It's good to have that big picture, that big goal in mind, but it really is breaking it down and executing on one thing and getting it done, and then move to the next and getting it done. And if it's a matter of skills as well that you're lacking, is don't try to tackle every skill at once. If you suck at sales, if you suck at customer service, if you suck at tech, don't try to learn all 3 at once. You're just going to suck at more, tackle one thing. This whole multitasking thing, that's a fallacy. That never, ever, ever works.
Yeah, nobody can do that. That's fake. It's a total lie.
Yeah, it's an absolute bullshit. This is another thing, work-life balance. Everyone talks about it. And, these entrepreneurs now, they love, we all love to brag how hard we do it, but I love to brag how little I work now. That's what I love. And it's a case of now work-life balance. And this is what it really, really means. This is what work-life balance means. It means when you work 100% at it. When you're not working, you work 100% at not working. That is brilliant. Balance. There is no 50% of my time is work, 50% of my time is free time. That is not work-life balance.
Well, and the reality is that when you truly do live a life that has that work-life balance, you actually are allowing yourself the time for your brain to process everything that's happening. Yep. And so in a sense, you're refreshing your brain, you're giving it some room to breathe so that it can do the work it needs to do to enable you to start fresh the next day with absolute clarity. And this idea of people working all day and claiming that they're working all these hours and everything. Well, if you were to consider how much time they spend during that day, they're claiming they're working all day, checking Facebook and doing Google searches and shopping online and all the other things that they're doing as distractions because they can't actually focus and stay focused. Well, it's because their brain saying, I just can't do this anymore and you need to give me a break. But they just think press on because that's how I'm going to get things done. But they're actually being wildly unproductive.
Absolutely. And what I used to do when I realized that as well, and to demonstrate that, I put a tool on my computer called Rescue Time. And, and before that, it logs everything you do, right? So then you see at the end of the day, your unproductive time. And then you're like, holy moly, I just found 3 hours.
It's amazing how many hours you recapture when you're actually paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah. And one of my coaches, I've had multiple coaches and I still have coaches now, right? I'm all about having coaches. One of them, he used to say, the worst vacation you could possibly go on is a vacation at your desk. And that is so true.
I love that. Oh my God, that is so magnificent. And what a perfect way to end our time together. That is magnificent. Oh my God, Ty, this was absolutely wonderful. It is so good to talk to you again. And I definitely would like to have you come back if you can.
Absolutely. I'd love it. I'd love to
talk about. And just for our listeners, if they'd like to get in touch with you for anything or find out more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so, hang out in my Facebook group. It's called LinkedIn Sales Funnels for Entrepreneurs. LinkedIn Sales Funnels for Entrepreneurs. I have a page in the group, but come into the group. You can just come in there, and from there you can see if you love me, and I can guide you wherever you need to go. And you can get in contact with me via the group. So yeah, feel free to come in there, especially if you're in the B2B space or think you need to improve your online presence via LinkedIn, or just want to get ideas about how to do it and not, even if you shouldn't be on there prospecting, but you want to have a presence there that looks great and gives you that authority. Yeah, just come on into the group. That's LinkedIn Sales Funnels for Entrepreneurs.
Beautiful. Ty, thank you again so very much. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Excellent, Arlene. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, everybody. This has just been an amazing time, and I hope that you have found this to be really beneficial. I know I have, as Ty always gives me more things to think about. So the question for all of you, as I always ask you, when you think about where you're at in your life right now, what's your next move? I'm Arlene Battishill. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back with another episode. Welcome to What's Your Next Move, the podcast for peak performers who are making things happen, but are running into roadblocks that prevent them from getting what they want. Whether you work for someone else, you're an entrepreneur, thinking about starting your own business, or at a point in your life where you just can't make the move from where you are to where you want to go, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about answering one question: what's your next move? And helping you harness your power so your next move is the one that changes your life. I'm your host and resident provocateur, Arlene Battishill, and I want to know, what's your next move?